And I think it's moving. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, Facebook. I hope we had an amazing day. I'm here with the most powerful, talented, gifted Dr. Linda.
And the other half is Mr. Eric Sean. So we
Well,
were just chatting. How about our day, huh? How
yeah,
it's been quite the
yeah.
day.
It's some days feel longer than others. Some days, it's every day is a growth process. I mean, every day is a day where you have the privilege as well as the responsibility of connecting with yourself and discovering. And I like what you said earlier, discovering the truth, and that's your God's eye.
And we have to remind ourselves, but most important, we have to be around other people that remind us of that too.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Yep. Because it's so easy to get down on yourself. It's so easy to think about the I should have's. And I remember somebody once said to me, they said, quit shouldn't on yourself.
yeah. Or the comparison game, right?
Yeah.
The other one is the comparison game or the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I was there all the time. And so I stopped. I'm like, okay, my life is a lot better now for the most part. So yeah, it's just, it gets that way.
What I found out about the whole comparison thing is you never win, because what you ultimately end up doing is you end up comparing your insides, because you know what's going on with you, with everybody else's outsides. And
Yeah.
you'll never win. You'll never win because you don't know what's going on with them. Somebody once said that if you go into a party of 100 people, and when you walk in the door there's a brown bag, and you can write your problems down and you can put them in the bag, and then you can go grab any piece of paper out of the bag, you better hope you grab your own, because you're equipped to deal with it. Some people got some serious stuff going on that you would never know.
That would be an interesting thing to do, actually.
Yeah. And then try to guess whose it is, right?
Right? They'd have to type it out there or something so they can't recognize other people's writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So we were just talking about early, like, people always ask me, like, what do you eat? And then I wanted to ask you, what do you eat? And how do you work all that in with, you have such a busy schedule and you train so many different clients and body types. So I wanted to chat because I get that question asked a lot, and I wanted to see your perspective. And I know you work with a lot of women. You also work with a lot of men. Maybe it's 50-50, and a lot of it is bio individuality.
Yeah, one of the things that
So I would
I'm old,
love to hear.
I'm old school, real simple. I believe in real food. Real energy dense food. No manufactured, no processed. I eat the basics. I eat salmon. I love salmon. People always say, "What's your favorite meal?" My favorite meal is salmon, sweet potatoes, and either broccoli or asparagus. I eat chicken. I eat turkey. Carbs. I have very simple carbs. My carbs are sweet potatoes. I get a lot of carbs from vegetables. And most of my diet, I believe in high protein. Protein is the main building block for everything.
Yeah.
You would be anything that's alive has to have protein.
If I say anything with a face.
Yep. Has to have
um,
protein. I mean, our nails, everything. It's,
right.
it's, it's, it's a matter of protein, you know?
And do you find that women, especially a lot of women, just they want to have their carbs, their crackers, their snacks, and you tell them have a steak. Like I had a steak yesterday,
Yeah.
and I can eat a pound of steak ribeye. It's like I can chow that thing down. But a lot of women, like they're afraid to eat protein.
Yeah, I do think women crave carbs more. And I think one of the reasons is because generally women are more sensitive. They're more emotional. Carbs it's comforting. Sometimes if you think about where does our food choices come from? right? And what does food mean to us? Most of our food choices really weren't even our choices. I mean, when we're little, we don't get to decide what foods we like and what foods we don't. You know, Bob Proctor talks about that. Our parents probably didn't choose, and their parents didn't choose. Way back in your DNA line, somebody decided they liked a certain food, and it's just been passed on and passed on and passed on. You know, but the other thing that I figured out where most people, when it comes to food, is especially in America, for us, food is generally part of a celebration.
Mhm.
You know, when we're young, when we're going through a struggle, what's the first thing that happens? Have a cookie.
Yeah,
You know, we so a lot of times food is connected with certain emotions, and it's more comforting than it is about even paying attention to what you're eating.
that's so true. Uh, and I always take that into consideration when creating like meal plans for our patients or giving them guidelines, because a lot of it is also ancestral, and it's just like I know some people can't tolerate dairy, but I've also found that some people, it's very inflammatory as well. Those are like, oh, I love my cheese, but yet their skin looks horrible.
Right.
And so I challenge them. I'm just like, remove the dairy for just a whole month, and then start with the different form, like maybe goat milk or goat cheese or sheep's milk, anything made from sheep or goat. At least your body can digest it better compared to cow's milk. And so I know you probably don't consume hardly any dairy, right?
No,
You
no, you know,
stick really basic.
yeah, just basic. You know, somebody once told me that they did a thing and figured out that cows won't even drink their own milk.
It's true. That's what I tell patients. I said, isn't that interesting? I said, we're the only species on the face of the earth that drinks milk from another species.
Yeah.
We are. I'm like, you don't see a cat going to a cow's udder and trying to get the milk out, or a goat, but look at us as human beings. It just is not, it's just not natural. But sticking to what you said, vegetables and proteins. I consume a lot of like berries, and some recommendations for patients, especially you were saying, like women, they want sometimes sweet, but all that's hormonal as well. And when
Mhm.
they go through their cycle, especially cycling women, they're like craving sugar, and they want more carbohydrates towards the end of their cycle. And and so you hear that a lot, and probably working with women, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel bloated. It's that time of the month's going to come, So yeah, a lot of it is also hormonal, because our blood sugar levels are influenced by, or actually controlled by our hormones. And the hormones are impacted by what? By what we eat, but also by stress. And as you and I were talking about, that's why it's so important to get your mindset dialed in,
Yeah.
because if you don't have your mindset dialed in, I mean, you become a stress eater. You start getting that insulin response with the cousin. I would say cortisol and insulin. I said they're like the cousins. You stimulate one, there goes the other one, not too far.
You know,
So,
on that same note, I think a lot of people use food for medicine. It's a medicine. You know, it's just like it's a drug. You know, and
mhm,
one of the things that I realized a long time ago, especially as a trainer, and I think a lot of trainers make the fatal mistake of just giving out a meal plan without knowing who they're dealing with. You know, and the reason that I say that is because if my medicine or if your medicine is food and I give you a meal plan, chances are the first sign of stress or the first sign of something happening that you don't know how to deal with, I don't care how strong you think you are, either you're going to deprive yourself, and ultimately, since you're a grown person, you're going to have whatever it is you really want, right? And generally, you have way more than you would have if you just would have done it. But anyway, it's medicine. And one of the things, the mistakes that I think that we make is we give these meal plans, and in the meal plan, what we're doing is we're taking away their medicine. right? We're taking away their natural or the thing that they've learned to deal with stress. And I always say, if you're going to take away somebody's medicine, then you have to replace it with an equal or greater medicine, right? So if I expect you to stick to a meal plan, I have to be willing to give you an alternative way to deal with your emotions. I have to give you an alternative way to deal with your stress. And a lot of women, they beat themselves up because, again, they're very sensitive, very emotional creatures. And they do a lot more stress eating, I think, than men do.
Agree.
Because they have an awful amount of stress. Their minds process stuff differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to create an alternative way of dealing with day-to-day situations.
Not too many trainers talk about that, or practitioners either. They don't talk about that, but you're spot on about. I mean, 100% agree. Because yes, you give them a meal plan. I always tell them we all know what that we should be eating better. We should be eating healthier. Like we know all the shoulds, right? Yet why don't we do it? So you have to give them, I would say, kind of like the blueprint. You've got to show them, well, this is how your mind works. And we're always going to have stress in our life. There's going to be challenge. There's always going to be something, right? When people contact you, it's like, oh, I'm ready to start after the vacation, after the. It's a year later, and oh, the timing is not perfect. I'm like, no, the timing is now. It's not for you to wait, because this is the timing right now. And life is going to continue to create obstacles. And that actually kind of goes back to vibrational energy, though. Because when we say we don't have time, guess what happens, right? The universe conspires for you that to prove that, yes, you do not have time. So it always goes back to the power of your words. What are you saying? What are you announcing to everyone? Hey, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm busy. So you're too busy that you don't have time to work out. And so we always go back to what's going on in here.
Yep. What's the story? What's your storyline? And you know me. I say it all the time. Everything is about your story. Is what you believe. It's what you believe. If you believe that, I hear people all the time saying, I struggle with eating after a certain time, or I struggle with eating too many carbs. Just by saying that, you've accepted the fact that you're gonna struggle, and you will create situations where you struggle. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and we talked about, or you mentioned hormones. Food has a lot to do with hormones. Earlier, we had mentioned intermittent fasting, and somebody had said something about it last week. And I know that intermittent fasting is a great way to get your hormones under control. So I wanted to ask your opinion on that.
Absolutely. I actually I went back to my routine of fasting. I do, and basically fasting just means you're not eating. And it's been in history for years. And it's a very, very effective method for so many health conditions. I love let's say, Dr. Jason Fung. He's a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, and he uses intermittent fasting a lot for patients with type 2 diabetes, with a lot of health conditions. It doesn't cost anything. You're not spiking insulin, which is the big, I would say, it's the hormone that really creates inflammatory response. And also, we're getting all our sugar cravings with that cycle of insulin being pumped out. So with intermittent fasting, you're basically just you have your eating window and your feasting window, and you're not eating. And so traditionally, I have a lot of patients. I encourage them to shoot for a 16-8, which means 16 hours no food. You can drink a lot of water as long as there's no calories in there. So just drink water, and an 8-hour window of eating. You're really going to benefit a lot from that. There's also intermittent fasting, where Sunday night, I'll have my last meal, usually done by 6 or 7. And then I won't eat again until Tuesday, like at 8 o'clock in the morning, 6, 7, or 8 in the morning, so that I can have a 36-hour fast. If imagine if you did that for 52 weeks out of the year. That's 52 days that you're not putting food in your body. You know what's happening? A lot of healing, anti-aging, brain health, body modification. You won't have to worry about dieting. There are so many benefits to intermittent fasting. So I don't know if you've ever gone that long doing a fast for 24 hours or 36 hours. But even if you did 16-8, a 16-8, there's still a lot of benefits with that. There's also one meal a day. I don't know if you've ever done a one meal a day where you consume all your calories within a 1 hour period out of every single day. It's very effective for men. For women, the intermittent fasting of a 16-8, especially women that have gone through, that are now like in menopause, don't have to worry about cycling anymore. They can do intermittent fasting pretty much anytime. And there's so many benefits. Like I said, one, anti-aging, and we want to age backwards, right? Why? I'm just like, hey, I'll say I admit it. It's vanity. The reason I do it, it's like because I want to look good and I want to have good skin and I want to be healthy. And if every person would just do that, if they would do a 16-8 or a 24 to 36-hour window of no food, it'd be amazing. Hormonally, it's awesome. I would just challenge women to do that.
Yeah, I haven't done intermittent fasting, but what I want to say is a lot of people get confused when they hear the term intermittent fasting. Like it's a complicated term, and really all it is it's an eating cycle. It's a cycle of eating. Where you have a certain period that you eat, and you have a certain period where you don't eat. And like you said, the most common one is 16-8. Generally like where you skip breakfast and you start eating. For a lot of people, they eat between 1 and 9. And then they go back into fast, and the benefits of it is amazing, because one of the things that it does is it changes your body's hormones, and it creates a state where your body has to use stored fat for energy. Changes your cell structure. I mean, it's so powerful, especially when it comes to when it comes to recovery. It's great for muscle recovery. There's so many benefits to it. Norman asked, how about exercising during fasting? My personal opinion is exercising during fasting. What my recommendation would be to do it during your fasting period, because again, your body is utilizing stored fat. It has to get energy from somewhere. So it gets it from your stored fat. Some people may suggest that you do it after you have your first meal, because then you have energy to get through. But again, if you're doing intermittent fasting for a period of time, your body now is in a different state than it normally is, and your body is in a state of continually looking towards stored fat for energy.
It's so powerful. And one of the things that, because a lot of people ask me, like, well, you probably don't have any energy when you're fasting. I'm like, no, I actually feel amazing. The clarity of, brain health is just amazing when you're not eating. It's like you're not thinking about, for one, you don't have to think about what am I going to have for dinner, what I'm going to have for breakfast. The kids, I say, you're on your own. Mom's not eating today. Already have food prepared. But once you train yourself, you actually look forward to it. And the whole timing of it too is I will still work out like on Monday. I'll go do my workout in the morning. And then Tuesday, I'll work out. And when you're working out fasted, I mean, you even have greater benefits. Some of the people that are doing like the 16-8, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but if they're doing like a 16-8, I said, as soon as you're done, I said, with your workouts or time your fasting to, so that when you're going to be done with your workout, and then you eat like the hour after that. So if you're on a 16-8, then do your workout at the 15th hour. And so by the time you're at that 16th hour and you're going to break your fast, I would say I always recommend patients to consume protein, especially women, because I really want to talk to you more about that, about protein amount and so forth with women, because as we were talking how a lot of women they shy away from the protein. They're consuming the carbs, and even how you break the fast in the morning is really important. So what do you tell your clients? If they haven't eaten, they came to your place, they worked out.
I listen, I absolutely agree with you for one main reason. When you work out, well, number one, you've been fasting, so your body basically again is using fat
Mhm.
for energy. But you're by the time you work out, your muscle cells, everything are depleted. That next meal won't get stored as fat. What's going to happen is your muscles are going to absorb all of that.
Mhm.
There's a thing called an anabolic window. Your body is in its most anabolic state right after you work out. Your body's going to absorb all of that nutrients. So I completely agree with that. One of the other things that our bodies have been developing for generations after generations after generation, and fasting is something that's natural for us.
Yeah.
I mean, think about cavemen, feast or famine,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's natural for us to fast. It's more natural for us to fast than it is for us to gorge.
So true.
Right? That's why our bodies don't know what to do with with the food like that, because we're used to using food as energy.
Mhm.
The biggest problem is we get so used to using food as pleasure and conversation pieces, and we focus oh, the taste. Food is for survival. I mean, we all like good tasting food, but that's not what it has to be about is learning how to utilize food, energy dense food, so that you get the most from it. And the goal is survival.
Yeah. And the thing you were saying though, we have to learn to create a healthy relationship with food because it's always going to be around us no matter what. If we go to parties, like I said, whether it's a funeral, whether it's a birth, whether it's a wedding, whether it's an anniversary, what's always there? Food. Christmas, Thanksgiving, the room in the house that's the busiest, most active is the kitchen. People congregate to the kitchen, right? And why? It's because where everyone's feasting, and it's also, I think we sometimes forget it's a very special, intimate time, kind of like when Jesus dined with the apostles, right? It's really like a celebratory um, event, and but we don't reverence it anymore. Is that it's kind of like two people having a conversation. To be fully present with that individual, that's really a holy moment. And I think if we were just reminded that when we're connecting with a person, it's like it's soul to soul food. And I think it just connects people even more. That's why people go on dates and they have their first date, or they want to connect with someone, and they're eating good food and just celebrating one another, but also it's like communing with food. But we have to learn to have a good relationship with it.
So here's a question for you, Dr. Linder. Christine asked, do you eat bread?
Very rarely do I eat bread. I I'm trying to think when's the last time. Every now and then I'll make some keto bread, but I'm not. I just really don't. I don't have a desire for it.
Yeah,
Do
I never eat
you
bread.
eat bread?
I just I've trained myself not to have a taste for it. The other thing I want to say too about food, and you mentioned a healthy relationship, and I go back to my go-to, your story. There's a lot of people who have, number one, developed this mindset that certain foods are bad. And so, and I'm not saying all foods are equal, but what I won't say is that there's good food and there's bad food. There's food that will serve your purpose better than other foods, right? But there's no good or bad food. Food is it's food. There's people that believe that carbs are bad. If you eat carbs, you will not be able to lose weight. that you're gonna put on fat. The truth is, it's all carbs aren't created equal, right? All carbs, like if you have macaroni and cheese, chances are you're gonna gain some weight. If you have sweet potatoes, chances are you're not going to. There's a glycemic scale, and every carb is listed on it. So there's some carbs that are very high on the glycemic scale that you will gain weight from, and they're very fattening. Foods that are low on the glycemic scale, sweet potatoes, your body's going to utilize that because some burn quicker and some burn slower, right? So back to the story, if especially if you've always been big, right? I run into a lot of people, they've been big most of their life, and they have a terrible relationship with food, and they feel like they don't know whether they can eat this or whether they can eat that, and so they just kind of give up and they eat whatever because they really don't know, right? If you continually tell yourself that if I eat this, that means I'm a bad person, that shame is going to do more damage than whatever it is you eat, because there's a cycle that happens. You eat something, you feel bad about it, and because you feel bad about it, now what do? You eat something else to feel better about it, which ultimately makes you feel bad about it. Right? There's a whole cycle of stuff that happens. I believe that the best approach to food is to set some guidelines. Number one, you have to realize what it is that you want to accomplish, right? The next thing is that you have to commit to yourself to make better choices. I think your average now, I'm a professional bodybuilder, so my mindset is different. And the people that I work with like that, my mindset is different, right? So if I train you and you're listening to me right now, don't think that what I'm saying necessarily applies to you. but your average person, the best approach is to slowly walk away from certain things. That is the best approach. Because what has to happen is your mindset has to change. The goal isn't to resist food. That's not the goal, because you're a grown person. What's going to happen is now you told yourself you can't have something, and we all know we want what we can't have. You're creating this burning thing within you, and ultimately, because you're grown, you're going to get it. The goal is to allow your mindset to change so you no longer want it, because it no longer serves you. And the way that happens is it's a slow process of walking away from things and allowing yourself to eliminate certain things, right? Anything that you do quick overnight that's not natural, it's not going to last. That's why people, they get on a meal plan or they get on a diet and they lose weight, right? And number one, here's what we know. Anything we lose, what happens? We find it. So we're going to lose it, and ultimately we're going to find it again because it's not natural. The goal is to allow yourself to change your mindset so that you make better decisions on what is not going to serve you well. So it's not that I can't have it. I don't choose to have it today. And allow yourself to slowly start to walk away from certain things.
Yeah. And yeah, I totally agree with you. It's your story around it. And once again, it's your goals. What are your goals? And I think with anything in life, just not with the food that we're eating, but also if we have goals that we want to accomplish something. Like when I wrote my first book, I had written down on a calendar, I'm going to spend this many hours this week to get my book done, and had a goal. And I got invited to do things, and I had to say no, because I knew that I had a deadline that I set for myself to write a book. And for me, it was just important, and I had to plan for that. And when it comes to health and fitness, you really have to surround yourself with people. I think that's how you and I connected, is you don't have to, but I would say you get to surround yourself with people who are like-minded.
Right.
Most fit people have a lot of fit friends. Most wealthy people associate more with wealthy people, right? People that are, and if you can complain about one person, like and this is women. I don't know, maybe guys do this too, but sometimes women. Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe my husband, blah, 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 blah. And all the women are together, right? Then the second one chimes in. Oh, yeah, and my husband does this. And then the third one chimes in. And all of a sudden, they're all complaining. Unless you have the oddball like me and says, kind of breaks the story and just says something totally different. But it's the same thing with um, when it comes to our food and health and being around other people that are going to support you in your journey and in your lifestyle. And that is something that each person has to choose. What do they want?
Yeah. Yeah. I just put something in the chat, and I think that if you've ever struggled with food, one of the things that I believe is it's easier for us to change our mindset if we know what we want to change it to, and we can begin to feel the benefits of that happening. Right? We all want to live in a better body. We all want to live in a better body. But let me ask you, and I want you to ask yourself this question. What would it feel like to be in that body? What would be the benefits of it? How would that radiate for you, to be able to step out of the shower and look in the mirror and say you love what you see? That would be the most freeing thing in the whole world, right? So I want you to ask yourself how you would feel when you accomplish whatever that goal is. And what I wrote in the chat is I am so happy and grateful, because you would be happy. You would definitely be grateful for making the choices that you make. So I am so happy and grateful now that I am in control of my food choices. One of the things I do every morning is I have these affirmations, and I write them out 10 times every single morning, because the easiest way to change the mindset is through repetition, right? How did our current mindset, how was it created? It was created because over the years, we've done stuff like continually told ourselves that we're fat. We're never going to get it right? We're never going to be able to get our food under control. So we have to do the exact same thing to create a new mindset. I am so happy and grateful now that I am in control of my food choices, because once that actually happens, you're going to be happy. You're going to be grateful. You're going to be so proud of yourself, and you're going to know the truth. And that is that you've already always been in control. You just never knew.
Yes, I love that. There's one that I shared with some of the ladies in our last class, and they said, "I'm so happy and grateful now that I have a strong, fit, healthy body, and I'm thriving at my ideal, perfect weight." Or I said, or you can put in your specific weight, because that's one of mine in the morning that I put in there, that I have a strong, fit, healthy, energetic, youthful body, and I'm thriving out in I put the weight in, and that's my morning mantra. It's like, one of my affirmations that I do every single day and write them out as well. So when you do that, it's like you're instructing your mind and lifestyles and habits that are going to keep me at that healthy, the sculpted, the strong, the fit, the healthy, the energetic individual that I'm training myself to be, based on spaced repetition. Instead of oh, well, I just look at a pie and I gain 5 pounds. I just smell cookies and I gain 10 pounds. I hear women say that all the time. I'm like, oh, wow, sucks to be you. So, but yeah. So,
Linda, could you put that in the chat? I love that affirmation.
yeah.
It's food is so very important. I see people, they spend all day in the gym, and they believe that that's when everything happens, is in the gym.
Mm-mm.
The gym, what you do is you plant a seed. You're basically planting a seed for growth. With any seed, that seed has to be nurtured, right? The way that we nurture our body, and the most important part of our body, or the most important part of the process of nurturing it, is
Yeah.
what we eat. It's what we eat. The other important thing is sleep. Think about if you've ever been to the doctor, if you've ever had a surgery, or if you've ever had an injury. What does a doctor tell you to go home and do? Rest.
Yeah.
Because the only time that the body can heal is in rest. So food and sleep are more important than anything that you can do at the gym. And the only thing that's more important than that is what you tell yourself that you're capable of doing, what you believe in your mind, whatever your story is. Because whatever your story is, you're going to make it happen. If you believe you're going to gain 10 pounds from looking at a cookie, guess what's going to happen? Because you basically told yourself that's what's going to happen. Affirmations are amazing, right? Our mind is number one. Our bodies can only respond to the mind. Our minds, regardless of how brilliant you think you are, it's really not that smart. It doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real, right? I mean, it really doesn't. Have you ever been standing somewhere and thought you seen something out of the corner of your eye and you jumped and there's nothing there? we're our mind is not as brilliant as our brain, I should say, because really the mind is not our brain, but our brain is not really that as smart as we think that it is. My point being is whatever information you feed into your brain, enough times your brain will accept it as reality. So the most important thing is to allow yourself to believe that whatever it is that you want to accomplish, that you can actually do it. And one of the biggest things and benefits of going to the gym is if you say, I want to accomplish this, one of the biggest ways of actually helping yourself to believe, every time that you show up, it strengthens that belief. Every time that you say to your mind, again, your brain, what it is that you want to happen, it strengthens that belief. Life changes through a process of repetition. So one of the benefits, and the people say, fake it till you make it. One of the things with that is if you go to the gym, and even if you don't believe it at first, that's okay, because just showing up, it's having a psychological effect on you, and it's having a psychological effect on what it is that you want to accomplish.
Yeah. 100%. So I put the affirmation, but I don't think it showed up in the comments. So I don't know if you want to copy that in the chat and put it in there. I don't know if I don't see it in there. So
you want to text it to me, and then I'll put it in.
People can go back and listen to that. So yeah, I just put I'm so happy. You put I'm so happy and grateful now that I have a strong, fit, healthy body and thriving at my perfect weight. People can put in what their weight is, what's perfect and ideal for them, and everyone's a little bit different.
Strong, fit, healthy body, and I'm striving at my ideal weight.
Yes. That'll work. So I guess in summary, to kind of summarize this, people want to know, yes, we don't eat bread. I still eat. Is there certain fruits that we avoid? You don't really eat a whole lot of fruit. I eat berries. I love berries. Blueberries, raspberry, boysenberries have low sugar. Dried fruit, because there's so much sugar in the dried fruit. Yeah. Do you eat fruit occasionally, Eric?
Strawberries, I like. That's really.
You're a berry person too.
Yeah. Yeah. So many antioxidants.
Nature sugar.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, we got that in there. Yeah, and as far as the intermittent fasting, we said breaking the fast. We both eat a lot of protein, but for one thing, for women, not to be afraid to eat protein. And not to be afraid to push heavy things. That's going to keep you young. It's going to keep you strong. It's going to keep you confident. And it's just so important that you eat your protein, get your beauty sleep, get your rest. That's why it's called beauty sleep. That's when the regeneration happens. That's when the anabolic state happens. It's very an anabolic condition is when we're sleeping. So that there's a lot of growth, a lot of activity going on during that time. So those are just a few points I wanted to finish up with. But also, as you were saying, it's just you've got to, what are you feeding this? It's probably more important than what you're putting in here, because what you put in your mouth really is dependent on what you're putting in here. If you think that the cookie makes you fat or you can't eat that, those are just stories. You got to start changing your story.
Yeah, if you continually tell yourself you're fat, or you tell yourself you're never going to do it, or I don't deserve it, uh, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number one, whatever you say, you're gonna be right. You're ultimately gonna figure out a way to make it happen. The other thing I wanted to throw in real quick when it comes to weight loss, and just to keep things very, very basic, because you had mentioned lifting heavy stuff. You know, women have always for years felt like if I lift weights, excuse me, if I lift heavy weights, I'm going to get bulky. Number one, chances are that's not going to happen because you don't have enough testosterone in your body naturally for that to happen. The other thing is the three basic ways to lose weight. Reducing your calorie, right? A caloric deficit. The other way is through cardiovascular, and the other way is through weight training. Each one has their benefits, but weight training is very important because the more muscle that your body has, for instance, somebody who has 5 pounds of fat, or somebody who muscle is so much more denser. Because it's denser, it requires so much more energy to move it than fat. So you burn more calories just walking based on the amount of density that you have, right? The other thing is when you do strength training, your body has to recover. It has to recover. And how's it going to recover? It has to recover even when you're sleeping. And where's it getting the nutrients from? It's getting the nutrients from stored fat. Weight training, strength training is so important, especially as we get older. It's extremely important.
Yeah. So you know what we're going to have to do? Because I'm going to get into this with you because I'm going to challenge you. Okay. So we're going to have to do this on another podcast, though, because I want to discuss the concept with calories in, calories out, hormones, and all that. That's going to be that's a whole conversation right there. I'm not even going to start on that right now, but I really think we should get into that because
that's what we'll do next week.
Not always a true statement for everyone.
Let's do that next week.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to love it. So we'll see everyone next week, and we're going to finish up with that. I know we both have busy schedules. We want to thank people for coming on and joining us, and it's always fun for us to connect. You know,
absolutely,
absolutely. We're only separated by time zones. That's it. But
it's again, I always say it's a pleasure when people spend time with you, because time is our most valuable commodity. Yeah. Also, this moment that we just shared, these 42 minutes that we shared, we'll never get them back. They'll never happen again, ever happen again. So we just made history with this. You know, the one thing I want to leave you with is you are as powerful as you believe that you are. The only thing that will ever stand in the way of you accomplishing what it is that you want to accomplish is nothing outside of yourself. It's only you, based on your belief, right? If you believe and you tell yourself that you want to accomplish whatever it is, if you can see it, you can make it happen. We're creators. We're master creators. So again, thank you all for spending this time with us. Thank you again, Dr. Linda. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. And I hope
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hope everybody has an amazing evening and a very powerful week.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.